Hey, what's up? Zach here, and today I've got Jaylen Brown's new shoe with his new company, the 741 Rover. Let's get into them. Now, everybody that I hear that is talking about these say that the Rovers look really futuristic. What I see when I see the first layer of the uppers is my dad's old Oakley sunglasses from like 1993, which that style is coming back in, so that's pretty interesting. I'm actually a big fan of outer wraps, dorsal retention straps, really anything to create more containment without relying on shoelaces. So I actually really do like this. And I did think that it was gonna introduce a lot more heat trapping and moisture trapping. That was pretty interesting, which we'll get to in a second. But that outer lap is pretty elastic yarns over here, and then it does have some, paneling in it, but that's not attached to anything, so a little more for window dressing, but it does look cool. Now, you go underneath of that once you cut it open, and it does look like a pretty basic textile woven mesh. You do get some felt paneling that goes from the lace line, which does reinforce it, all the way down to the strobe board. I actually did feel this on my styloid process when I was tying it down, and yeah, it does break in. Was a little bit uncomfortable at first, but it also does show you that it is actually doing something. Like the laces are pulling something pretty substantial. So that actually was a nice thing to see. There is no runner's knot, but the last lace eyelet is reinforced with what appears to be hard plastic. Now, coming around the ankle collar and heel counter are these TPU ribbons that go all the way from more the proximal end of the ankle collar all the way down, more distally, kind of, in the bottom part of the heel counter and ankle collar. And, in terms of lockdown, I really had none to mild heel slippage in these, even without a runner's knot. They tie down really darn well. The tongue is very padded. It is pretty thick, and it does have a nice aggressive gusset to it. The ankle collar and heel counter is padded, and it is textured, so your sock kind of interacts with it, which is actually really, really nice. And with those ribbons going around the heel counter, just gives a little bit more support to the heel counter and ankle collar, while also allowing it to kind of mold to your ankle and give a little more flexibility so it actually can tie down, which is a nice little weight saving idea there. But bringing that all together in the breathability test, shocking, these only heated up 104.9 degrees, which you gotta hand it to them. On the website, it says it's lightweight, it's stretch and breathable, and it is. And I think really it's because, you go into the forefoot, and there is a lot of egress points for hot air to get through. I mean, it's not super padded in the forefoot. I mean, the tongue is, but everything else has, a lot of just room for air movement. So does that knit. One thing is, look at the breathability mapping, and it takes forever for the fog to get out. So although they handle heat well, there's potential for some waterlogging there. There's potential for a lot of moisture retention. So honestly, for a shoe with this kind of glove wrap around it, it's better than I thought it was gonna be. And looking at this on the upper durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, the website says it's anti-abrasion yarn, and it's right. It does make it look a little weird, but it does not get through it. So especially dragging or sliding on an indoor hardwood court, honestly, should be just fine. But getting into the midsole teardown is actually a little bit more of a basic midsole. It is just an entire bed of supercritical EVA, and there is no shank on these things. Hearing from people that I talk to in the industry quite a bit, who I actually, I converse with a lot, they are saying that the chemical manufacturers that they're using and the factories they're using are telling them that with supercritical foams now, they're getting so good that the durability of the foam and the durability of the bounce of the foam doesn't necessarily need a shank anymore in terms of liveliness of foam and durability of foam. Now, the side-to-side containment and the side-to-side stability when they're new is still good, but to me, in basketball, the shank is doing, in tennis and in pickleball, really any side-to-side court sport, that shank is doing more for keeping the shoe stable going side to side. Yeah, there's a lot of lift that happens with the diving board effect of it, but the fact that these don't have a shank, but they do talk a lot about the supercritical EVA in there. I'm really interested in seeing, is the chemistry getting that much better that the shoe is staying more containing, more lively for longer, or do you still just need the shank? In my opinion, I'd rather just have the shank in there, especially because just like in the uppers, right, when you're not relying on just one component of the shoe for lockdown in the uppers, right, of the retention strap or the glove that these have on it, that's great because there's less chance for failure in the shoe. Same in the midsole. If you're only relying on foam, that's 1 point of failure. Whereas if you got the shank in there, other things, a truss system on the outside or a dyno wall like an Asics, right, then you're getting all sorts of other components. Now there's multiple safeguards. So that's just my opinion, but I did want to kind of clue you into what kind of the companies are thinking now, which I'm interested to see. Maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see in the future. I look at these things on the bounce height test, got 35 centimeters in the rear foot, 837 in the forefoot. That's pretty typical for super critical EVA. And when you activate the shoe and you're actually bending the shoe and moving it, it does feel pretty darn lively, to be honest. And for the slab of foam you get in it and how thick the rubber is, which we'll talk about in a second, they honestly do feel pretty buttery to the ground. Like, you actually do get a lot of ground feel on them, which I thought was pretty surprising with, you know, the setup of the shoe. So all in all, you know, like I said, it's basic midsole, but we'll see how they do over the long term. But getting into the outsole tread, honestly my favorite part of these shoes, and I think one of the best outsole treads I've seen in terms of design. It's so simple, but so well thought out. It's just simple linear treads of rubber that snake along the shoe, but it's rounded off on the medial side and then squared off on the lateral side. So rounded off medially for easier kind of fluid step to step, then more jagged on the outside or more squared off for more stability. It's fantastic, right? Or more stopping power too. It's just a simple pattern, right? But just the way it's put on there is out of this world, and these really, really deep flexion spots in the forefoot. I love the design of this outsole. I just think it's so cool. It's just so simple and well thought out. Look at these things on a grip test ramp. They do slip at 39 degrees. So, I mean, the initial grip's pretty decent. They do pick up a decent amount of dust, a quick wipe down, and they grip just fine. Look at these things on the outsole durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, and not even a millimeter of damage. The rubber thickness on these things is chunky. So, I mean, in terms of durability on indoor courts, these should last you a while. And these can be used on outdoor courts because, like I said, the rubber thickness it's chunky, it's big. There's a lot of load sharing going on there. So I do think even though the durometer is a little bit lower than some other outdoor focus shoes, they can play outdoors pretty well. But you look at these things on the speed ratio though, they only come in at a 2.13 shank score of 0 because there's no shank. I think when they're new, that does undersell it. They are very lively when they're new. But after a while, when you start breaking in the foam, you start sweating a lot in these things, right? Because they can get a little bit of moisture retention in there. Does that foam lose a little bit of its liveliness? Do they start kind of coming down to where that speed ratio puts them in? Maybe. So yeah, I think that's probably accurate in terms of the long-term picture of the shoe, in terms of initial speed on them, side to side, quick, nimble speed, even getting up and down the court, really pretty good. All right, but getting into the fit of the Rovers, these things only have a 9-degree inflare, so they are a little bit more of a straight shoe. You come in a hair short at 28.7 centimeters in length, 9.9 centimeter metatarsal width, 10.9 centimeter toe box width, and a toe box taper of 26 degrees. So a pretty mellow shoe all around. Like I said, I only had a little bit of cramping because that little felt piece was right where my foot hit it. So a lot of other people are not gonna have that. Honestly, they're pretty forgiving. In terms of a narrow or medium foot, they are a little short, they are hair short, so you can go down a half size if a narrow foot, if you're short-footed, if you're long-footed. Honestly, they lock down okay, so maybe it's a thicker pair of socks and you go true to size. Medium 2E, go true to size. A 4E, I think you can go up a half size on these, but I think you can break these in true to size unless you're more C-shaped like me and your outside of your foot sticks out, then I would be going up that 1/2 to 1 size. They're short enough where you can go up if you feel like it. Especially if you are someone with a super high volume foot, you wear a couple socks. Like I said, they're short enough where you can go up that if you want a roomier fit. And in terms of the snake pit and foot, you know, with a orthotic in these, I think they're pretty darn good for most things. There is not a huge flange on these. There's just a little bit of a thickening of the rubber on the outside. So yeah, you are gonna break in the foam in the forefoot, so you're gonna get stability. Yeah, it's flat tread and it's designed like a basketball shoe. And like I said, you are gonna start to feel the ground more and more and more as you break in the foam. And I didn't have any issues with stability at all, but there is really not a lot out there to protect you. So I wouldn't say they're bad necessarily for ankle sprainers, but it wouldn't be my first pick. That supercritical EVA is very shock absorbing, feels really good, but I still think you need an orthotic in there. Just for, like I said, for when the foam starts to kind of break in. So let's say with an orthotic in them, as long as the foam is holding up its end of the bargain, you should be okay. All right, but getting into the performance of the Rovers, I think I talked about it, really buttery, really quick side to side shoes. Had a lot of ground feel, like I said, for how thick the rubber is on them. The tread is so good. The feel you get on these on court underfoot is really good. It's really nice. It's a really nice feeling, buttery. It's kind of like it defines the word buttery in terms of a basketball shoe. Getting up over and over and over again for layups, I honestly, it was okay. Like I said, the shoe does bend so easily in the forefoot, like it is super buttery, no shank. Yeah, the shoe feels okay, but you can definitely tell it's not something with you know, a longer shank in it. Is it bad? No. But like I said, a little more of a ground assault shoe for me, a little more of a create space for yourself type shoe, getting out of kind of hairy situations. You know, you've only got a split second to grab traction really quick and get your body turned around. These are really good. And you can tell who designed them, right? You can tell where they're made for. And it's pretty cool. I like this. This was designed by someone who wants to wear them and wants this particular design. Now, Jaylen Brown can get as many of these as he wants, right? So when the foam starts breaking down, he just gets a new one, right? So in terms of like optimal performance for while they're new, yeah, they're fantastic. And in terms of pro level footwear, they're out of this world. And you know, I'm sure he's got custom orthotics in his shoes, or at least some sort of orthotic in his shoes. So it's not gonna matter as much. I do think it is cool that this is what he wants. You know, he made it, he put all his money into this company. So I do think this is awesome that this is kind of his interpretation of kind of like the ideal basketball shoe. So love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Are you picking one of these up, especially at the $200 price tag? I'd love to know down below kind of what you think, and if, you know, if you like the setup of these enough to take a chance on a new brand. So let me know in the comments. And if you want to see the complete opposite end of the spectrum with a shank that is enormous, the Harden Volume 9 going to the knife, make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect your ever foam. I'll see you soon on the Sneakerverse. And big shout out to my buddy Zach King, who actually made these shirts, the Sell the Team shirts. He, like myself and all the other favorite sons of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, are huge Pittsburgh Pirate fans, and him, like a lot of people, are fed up at the direction the team has gone for, say, I don't know, the last 25 years. So if you want to check out his website, selling all this merch, trying to get just bring some more attention to the fact that us Pittsburghers want a competitive baseball team, I'll leave a link in the description below.